Hello, hello! You are listening to ClancyPasta Tonight. I'm your host, ClancyPasta. I hope you're having a great night tonight. It is currently Sunday, June 22nd. And, you know, tonight is a very special night because it marks the beginning of a brand new show. You see, in the past when I would do live streams, and it's been a long time, I would basically just come on a chat, and we would just talk back and forth the whole time. I would be reading the live chat, and it would be a grand old time. Maybe I'd be playing a video game in the background, but that's not what we're doing tonight. Tonight is the inaugural episode of, like I said, the brand new show ClancyPasta Tonight, which is where you will hear the brand new ClancyPasta narrations first. And that's because we're starting a whole new format. We are going back to basics, okay? We are no longer gonna be sitting around and just playing it safe and spending a billion years editing stories and getting out one story a month or something, which happens sometimes, and having a million other videos that never end up getting released because I'm not happy with them. I'm writing a new rule book. We are recording live. No edits, no nothing at all. It's like we're literally sitting around a campfire and we're gonna be telling some scary stories. And I really think that is pretty exciting. So I want everyone to give a huge welcome and shout out and thanks and hello to my main man. He is going to be the show's DJ and live audio designer. You're going to hear him a lot. He's going to be a big part of the show. Say hi to Skeevy Weevil. How you doing? All right, good. Yeah, so... So yeah, so we're going to be starting with Forgotten Tales. So basically the first segment, there's going to be a few segments. The first segment is going to be a bunch of old classic creepypasta stories you might have heard, but you probably haven't. I'm not going to be reading tonight anyways, any of like the classics like Dead Bart or something like that. We're going to be delving into some stories that are old classics, but no one really knows, you know, who wrote them. And no one really knows these stories because they just weren't that popular. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, so we're gonna have 4 stories of that, and then we're gonna go into a segment of a modern day creepypasta. There's this really interesting Ed and Eddy creepypasta that, you know, I just love those lost episode stories. So we're gonna get into that. And then we're gonna have one bonus story that's just a random story from the internet that I think you'll enjoy. It's one of those stories that's just it's what do they call them? A Nosleep. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, that's our show. So yeah, we're gonna listen to the first 2 stories, then I'm gonna come back and I'll see how you guys are doing. I'll look at the chat. Although honestly, I'm probably not going to be looking at the chat that much this stream just because it distracts me so much. But yeah, so we're going to listen to the first 2 stories. I'll come back and talk, and then we'll listen to some more stories. I'll come back again, and it'll... yeah, so yeah, the first story is going to be about a weird carnival game that this guy describes, and the second story is going to be about a guy who finds a bunch of weird, creepy notes around his house. I don't think you're going to want to miss it. So without further ado, thank you all for stopping by tonight, and yeah, enjoy. I'll talk to you guys in just a few minutes. The Mouth of Truth. Author unknown. Somewhere near the center of Palermo in Sicily, there's an old amusement park. Should you wander around just beside a shooting gallery, there's an old funny-looking statue of a grotesque face. Don't try to get close to it yet. As soon as you're about to touch it, no matter how hard you try, you'll change your mind. Go to the shooting gallery and pay the clerk for 3 games. It will cost you the equivalent of $10 in total. It doesn't matter how much you score. As soon as you finish the second game, keep the gun and don't shoot again. The clerk will ask you for his gun back, but you must ask to try the mouth of truth instead. After he agrees, you'll be able to approach the statue. Put your hand in its mouth up to your wrist. A small crowd will gather around you. After some seconds, the eyes will light, and your hand will be blocked. The statue will ask you one question about a secret or embarrassing fact of your life, even something you're ashamed of. You must answer the question truthfully and aloud, regardless of the people watching you. If you answer correctly, some will be shocked, others amused by the truth, and your hand will be released. Within the following 2 or 3 weeks, you will feel somewhat different. You will see that same light of the statue in your own eyes, and you'll notice people will feel a bit uneasy when talking to you. That will be for a simple reason. None will be able to lie to you. The effect of this blessing will last about a year. After it is worn out, you'll be able to redo this once again. Don't answer the statue with a lie. An inner mechanism will clamp your fingers and you'll pass out from the shock. When you wake up, you'll be just outside of the park and you won't be able to enter it ever again. When you go back home the morning afterwards, you'll feel something strange in the hand you put in the statue's mouth, and find out your pinky is missing. There will be no cuts or wounds, just smooth flesh where your finger used to be. Throughout the following days, you'll wake up each morning with one of your fingers gone. On the 11th to 20th morning, your toes will start to go missing. Should you try to ask for help, people will just laugh at you and say you've always been a liar. In a month, you'll have no appendages, no nose, ears, eyes, lips, genitals. All you'll be able to feel around with are your stumpy limbs. And your limbs will disappear too. You'll be left wherever you fell asleep as a human stump until starvation and decay get the better of you. If you answer truthfully, but keep your voice low, from that moment on for the rest of your life, you'll be a big liar. Anytime you try to tell the truth, your voice will be cut, and only a slight hissing sound will come out. Notes. Author unknown. All this started when I found that little note. On a square piece of paper I found at the bottom of a box I was moving out of my basement. It read, "Hello? Please respond." I had no idea how long the paper had been there. Those boxes had sat in my basement since I moved in. I ignored it until the next morning, when I opened my coffee maker to throw out the grounds, and Inside was a sopping wet piece of paper that read, "Please respond. Please help." I figured it must have been put inside my coffee maker by whoever was pulling this pointless prank, because it wasn't there when I put my coffee grounds in. I found more notes under my mouse pad, inside my computer tower while I was putting in some new RAM, between the layers of tissue of my toilet paper roll, and under my DVD player's disc tray. Places that no one would ever look. Places you'd never think of putting a note. Places you knew no one would ever look, and it would be foolish to put a note. Because who knew when they would see it? But it kept happening. And they all said the same thing every time, begging me to respond and help them. Being the idiot I am, one day I just got fed up when I found one inside a cup in my dishwasher. Right after I had run it, the paper was dry. I wrote on the back of it, "Hello, I'm responding. Please explain your situation," and slid it under a crack in my bath-fitted tub. No sooner had I left my bathroom did I find another piece of paper floating on the surface tension of my glass of Sprite I had in the living room. I carefully picked it out of my drink. It read, "Thank you," and in large letters, "I'm trapped." I waved it around to dry it off a bit and wrote on the back of it again, "Where are you trapped? How are you sending me notes?" And, not creative enough to think of where to put it, I just threw it behind my couch. I waited and looked, but I didn't see any other note for the rest of the day. The next day, I checked my mail. Inside of some spam letter was the next note. "In the second dimension, below you." I wasted no time in responding with, "Whoever you are, this prank is idiotic. Give it a rest," and threw it outside. The wind blew it away. The next note I got was still in obnoxious capital letters, though it was much longer than before, and the last sentence seemed to have been squeezed into the remaining space. I think it was a passage from some encyclopedia or textbook. "The first dimension is a defined point in space. The second dimension," this was underlined, "is anything that exists with height and width, while the third adds length. The fourth includes time, and the fifth is the past. Time that has already occurred and is solidified in time-space." Everything beyond that was too squished in to read. I rolled my eyes and responded again. "How can you read this if you're in the second dimension? How can you even exist?" I slipped this note into the space in my toaster between the element and the metal casing. My reply came when I brushed it out of my hair the next morning before I took a shower. "Writing is 2D. Vision is 2D. Two 2D images superimposed." I didn't really get to the point of how I was supposed to rescue this person, which I defined in my next note that I flushed down the toilet. "Make me 3D," was all that was on the new slip of paper I found inside a chocolate bar I unwrapped later on. How the idiot was putting these inside sealed products was beyond me, but at this point I decided to play along. Maybe it was some kind of TV show thing. "How?" was all I wrote for my reply. I remember exactly where I put it because it was the last thing I wrote for a long time. I put it in a crack between my length mirror and its wooden backing. As soon as I let go, it slid out of sight and didn't see any papers again for a year and a half. Getting dressed one morning for work, I went into my room and adjusted my tie and shirt in my mirror. The same one, only it was now on the opposite side of my room. Looking into it, I noticed a square behind me on the wall. Turning around, there was none. In the instant before I turned around again, I thought it must have fallen off, but in the mirror, it was still there, still stuck to the wall. I touched the mirror, thinking maybe it was some sort of warping or optical illusion, but it wasn't. I lifted my heavy mirror up from the ground and slowly walked backwards with it, nearing myself to the opposite wall on which the paper was stuck. The closer I got, the clearer the message on it became, until I stopped, sandwiched between the heavy mirror and the wall, looking at the paper immediately over my shoulder. Make you 2D, it said. I moved the hell out of that house as soon as I could. After bunking at my girlfriend's for a while, I got rid of that mirror, the toaster, everything. My heart still skips a beat when I see any perfectly square piece of paper sitting on the floor, all alone. I still live in fear of someday I'll open up a book or look in the inner lining of a jacket and a piece of paper will flop out. I check all my things now, constantly. I also don't drink coffee anymore. Okay, dang, those were two pretty scary stories. Yeah, those are definitely old stories, but man, I don't even really remember reading them back in the day. But yeah, what'd you guys think? I really liked that carnival ride story a lot. I thought it was I thought it was really cool. But by the way, I wanted to let you guys know, because I kind of forgot to mention it at the beginning. Sorry, I've been running. If you want to watch this after the stream is over, it's gonna be live for people to watch on Patreon and my YouTube members. But if you're watching this on YouTube and you're not a patron and you're not a YouTube member, then I guess I decided to let this video stay live for everyone. But going forward, the stream will be live for everyone to watch ClancyPasta tonight. Everyone can watch it live. But then afterwards, if you want to watch the full stream, YouTube member or patron, but then each individual narration that I do on here, each little story, I'm going to upload publicly over like the next week or whatever on the ClancyPasta YouTube channel and podcast for everyone to listen to. Okay. So yeah. Okay. Yeah. So. Yeah. We're gonna go into the two darker stories now. They're much darker than the first two. These are like the kinds of creepypasta stories you might find online in like 2015, 2016, like the pretty dark stuff, man. So buckle up and, okay, I'll talk to you guys when we get back. All right. The weird part of YouTube. Author unknown. Everyone has been to the weird part of YouTube. If you haven't, then I suggest you pay a visit. It's a very simple process. In fact, to make it even easier, I'll lay it out in step-by-step form. Step number 1. Find any video you want. Literally. Absolutely anything. It can be a cat video, a music video, whatever. Something from Japan will work best though. Step 2. Click on the strangest related video you can see, whichever has the absolute most mind-blowing thumbnail or title. Step 3. Repeat step 2 until the most liked comment on the video is, quote, "I'm on that weird part of YouTube again," unquote, or something along those lines. Now, this alone isn't all that scary. It's mostly just funny. You can laugh at failed ads or absurd stuff from different cultures. Sometimes it gets scarier. A dancing girl with no arms or legs. Someone with a load of tattoos eating glass. A crazed hillbilly ranting about how the government will kill everyone. It gets stranger too. Dig deep enough and you can find actual death. I don't mean like news stories on people getting killed. I mean full-on amateur snuff films. No After Effects or CGI, just real people being murdered. You're wondering why YouTube doesn't take them down, aren't you? Well, there are 2 reasons for this. Firstly, there are days worth of videos being uploaded to the site every minute, so much that a lot gets by YouTube staff. They take down anything pornographic that isn't art, but even that slips through sometimes. The second reason is money. YouTube only pays attention to the stuff that pays, is protected by copyright, or gets a large amount of views in a short amount of time. That last one is the reason for the 301 views phenomenon. Because of this, there are plenty of people who can easily upload almost unnoticed videos. Some of them never get any real attention, only 2 or 3 views. There are a ton of these amateur snuff films, and they only require a little searching for. Try it for a few hours. Be warned, however, you might not hate what you see. You might want to see more. Or, you might just want to try making one of these videos. After all, they have to come from somewhere. Venting download. Author unknown. I remember the early days of YouTube. Those were the good old days. I am a true gamer, and I was into web shows on YouTube that revolved around video games. One of my favorites was a series called Remember This Game? About obscure games, narrated by YouTube user GifKiltron, who unfortunately deleted his channel. In October, he made an episode revolving around a banned computer game called Venting. The game featured a lot of disturbing content and has since been banned. I thought the story made for a good Creepypasta article without actually being one. While I can't bring you the original video, I can give you a transcript. Remember This Game? Episode 14, the Halloween special. Theme song plays. Remember this game? Venting? Hello. This is your video game wizard here once again. Back in 2004, I was really into downloadable online games. There were many to pick from. Some I remember, some I don't. One that I will never forget is Venting. At first, I never played it. The website I downloaded it from was very generic and didn't give off the sense of a fun game. Then a friend of mine who had played the game told me not to play it, and that it was the most frightening game he's ever played. I became curious and decided to download the game, despite my friend's advice. Apparently, it came with backgrounds you could put on your computer. I'll get into that in a few minutes. Poor quality footage from the game begins to play. It turned out to be a first-person shooter. There were a lot of fun ones back in those days. The gameplay itself was not all that fun and extremely generic. It didn't look like the developers put much effort into the game. It consisted of 12 levels, and all of them were basically the same level design. The environment was non-existent. The ground was in a 360-degree flat landscape with no textures. The sky was a light yellowish gray. The enemies were non-threatening and didn't do anything. They just stood there without any movement whatsoever, with the exception of occasional head turns. They were all the same 3D character model, just copied and pasted into the level. Each level had a different 3D model, and you were supposed to shoot them. Compared to modern violent games like San Andreas and Resident Evil 4, the game wasn't as graphic, but it lacked any of the multiple objectives like in those games. You shoot the characters and they just fall down as a little blood squirt. And the only objective to the whole game is to shoot people and nothing else. The sound in the game was also close to being non-existent. The only sound in the whole game is the song Für Elise being played on a synthesizer over and over again. I was about to stop playing the game after the first level, but then I realized the whole point of it was to kill a certain number of people. After killing all the copy and paste characters in the first level, you would be given a free computer background. A screen came up that read, "You killed 57 people. Click here for your free background." I clicked the button for the background and was horrified to see what it was. A photo of a dead teenage boy laying in a grass field near a park bench. His body had 4 bullet holes in it. The creepy thing was that the boy looked like the character model in the first level. The character model for the second level was an older bald man. After beating the level, you are given another background. This time it was a photo of a dead bald man who looks like the character model in the second level. He also appeared to have bullet holes in him. His body was lying in a swimming pool. I wanted to stop, but it felt like something was making me continue. I felt like I was uncovering some kind of murder mystery. After beating all 12 levels, I was introduced with the only cutscene in the whole game. We see the landscape of dead bodies. Then we finally see the character you play as. It is revealed to be a stark white humanoid with no detail, not even facial features. After shooting all these people, it points the gun at its face and pulls the trigger. When its body drops to the ground, if you listen closely, you can hear the faint sound of someone crying as text reading "Game Over" appears on the screen. The sound of the crying plays. I don't know why, but I saved the photos of the dead bodies. I gave them to my local police department. It turns out the game was developed by Jonathan Winstone Banks. a self-loathing college game designer from North Carolina. The following day, after putting the game on the internet, he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. He left behind a note where he confessed to the deaths of 18 people, 12 of which were the people in the photos. The website I downloaded the game from was deleted a week after reporting the photos to the police. The strange thing is that none of the people he killed were identified. I know I shouldn't do this, but disregarding the whole backstory, this game was the worst thing I have ever played. No competition, no gameplay, no nothing. The only two reasons to play this game were for the whole backstory and to get a feeling of what it's like to see through the eyes of a psychopath. I won't give a rating. Knowing about the game, I can't give one. Anyway, that is the whole story. Hoped it was informative. Halloween is a few days away. I hope you have a good one. This is your video game wizard, signing off. Okay, how'd you guys like those two stories? Yeah, I thought they were pretty good, pretty scary. So yeah, coming up we got a modern, like, lost episode story, like Ed and Eddy, about Ed and Eddy. I like the Ed boys. And then we got just like a Nosleep story, you know? Just one of those stories that you find on Nosleep. Okay, okay, I'll talk to you afterwards. Ed, and Eddy, The Joyride. Written by ERICSHANRICK. Ed, and Eddy is a show I go way back with. I watched it all the time back when it aired and loved its over-the-top slapstick comedy. One day, my friend Jeff and I were re-watching one of the old episodes when he brought out a DVD case. It was completely black except for the cartoon logo scribbled on the front. It looked like a hand-drawn sketch of the Ed, and Eddy one. I asked him what it was and he told me it was a lost episode for the show. This made me pause since it was common knowledge that lost episodes weren't just something you could get on DVD. They were either incomplete material that never aired or kept under lock and key by the producers. Jeff assured me that his copy was the real thing. He apparently got it from this comic shop called Marquee Noir. This immediately set off red flags for me. Marquee Noir was known here in Toronto as a shop of wonders for archivists. It had the most obscure and rare media ever known, some of which dates back several decades. I read blogs about people's experiences with the shop, and most of them ended in ruin. They all talked about how the shop was cursed, and how they almost died because of the things they saw. I wasn't sure if I believed all that, but it was clear that place was bad news. I tried telling this to Jeff, but he wouldn't listen. He was adamant that we had to watch this disc, since we were both big fans of the show. As sketchy as the whole thing was, I had to admit that I was still interested in what the disc held. We went to my living room so I could watch it on my big screen. The lights were turned off, and a bowl of popcorn was prepared to set the mood. Fear and excitement were coursing through my body. All those urban legends about Marquee Noir were chilling. but the possibility of having an actual lost episode in my grasp was too amazing to ignore. Jeff inserted the disc into the DVD player, and we watched the screen come to life. The intro played like normal, except for a few weird static glitches that appeared every now and then. The episode title card would later pop up, showing a cartoon sketch of a destroyed car with the words, "Highway to Ed," hovering over it. The episode began with a scene of Eddy trying to break into a car. Double D was frantically telling him to stop, while Ed just watched on with a wide grin. Eddy eventually broke into the car by using a screwdriver and dived inside. Not wanting to leave Eddy to his own devices, Double D joined him inside the car, and so did Ed. I was wondering how someone as short as Eddy was supposed to drive a car when the next scene answered my question. Eddy glued some phone books to his feet and sat on a crate he pulled from thin air. The absurdity of it got a good laugh from my friend and I. Eddy sped off in the red car, despite Double D's protests. Eddy went joyriding all over the cul-de-sac. His control of the car was obviously sloppy, and he was constantly on the verge of running into someone's property. Double D was desperately pleading for Eddy to stop, but he didn't care. He wanted to show off his latest heist, regardless of who or what was in his way. The scene then cut to Kevin, who was doing bike tricks in front of all the other kids. They all cheered Kevin on as he performed stunt after stunt. Naz walked up to Kevin to comment on how cool his new bike was. This made Kevin blush a bit, but he played it cool and acted like it was no big deal. "Watch out!" I heard Sarah yell before the scene switched to Eddy's car quickly approaching the group. Kevin tried running out of there, like everyone else, but the wheels on his bike jammed up and froze him in place. I was fully expecting the show's usual slapstick shenanigans to happen at this point. Maybe Kevin would have been flattened like a pancake or be sent flying through the air until he was only a twinkle in the sky. What I got instead was something far more grim. A loud glitch effect briefly flashed on the screen, before switching to the direct aftermath of the crash. Kevin's body was a horribly mangled mess of his former self. His legs twisted in unnatural angles while blood pooled beneath him. The screen cut to the kid's face scrunched up in pure terror. Blood-curdling screams flared from the speakers, rattling me to the bone. Eddy continued driving his car while the mournful screams of the children roared in the background. The Ed trio were all nervous wrecks at this point. Ed was sobbing while Double D went on a long tirade about how Eddy was now a vicious criminal. This only infuriated Eddy and made him tell them to shut the hell up. His fearful eyes darted around while still driving at high speeds. Sweat beaded profusely from his head, and his heart was literally beating against his chest. Blood trickled from the hood of the car as Eddy drove into the highway. Police sirens flared vividly through the speakers, but there were no cops on screen. Eddy accelerated the car at even higher speeds, despite his friends begging him to stop with tears in their eyes. He was completely taken over by paranoia and anxiety. The car raced across the asphalt like a speeding bullet. Eddy's recklessness eventually caught up with him. His car went spiraling out of control until it crashed into the guardrail. All became silent. No music, no sound effects. The screen only showed an image of the wrecked car with a reddened windshield. The car remained motionless for several seconds, until the screen slowly faded to black. We didn't say anything for a while, even after the episode ended. I struggled to process just what the hell we just saw. I at first thought it was some fan animation, but the fluidity of the animation and perfect replication of the show's art style and sound design was something only a pro could pull off. Would Danny Antonucci or his employees really create an episode so morbid? I tried putting the experience behind me and going on about my life, but images of that episode kept playing in my head. One morning, before going out on a jog, a news report caught my eye. A group of 3 teens were found dead in a horrific crash after stealing a car from their neighborhood. There's been a weird uptick of teens stealing cars lately, so it was probably just a coincidence. But I still can't help but feel that it's somehow connected. My Usual Bus Wouldn't Let Me Exit Last Night by Postbox 446. Basically what the title says. I live in a really big city in Germany, but more on the outskirts of town, since housing is cheaper there and my parents were actually able to afford a house that came with a big garden. Most apartments uptown are really expensive, and me and my sister would have had to share a room, so I'm pretty happy with how things are. The only disadvantage is the way of getting around and to school. We have 1 tram and 1 bus line. If I want to get to school, it takes me 40 minutes. Nerves of steel, since you can't rely on German trains, and I have to change trains several times. My school, as well as most of my friends, are right in the city center. On my way to school, one of the trains crosses a bridge over the river, and sometimes I use those 2 minutes that I can see over the city to switch between looking back at where I live and looking out front, where the train is going, to visualize the distance. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that when I visit my friends in winter, I take the bike in summer, though it takes almost a full hour, to avoid the pressing heat of German trains that mostly come without a functioning AC. And I'm taking the multiple trains and buses back home at the end of the evening. I'm often the sole passenger. Very rarely, I'm joined by a few familiar faces. At some point you recognize those living in the area, since it's basically like living in a village with the forest on one side and the river on the other, the latter sectioning us from most of the rest of the city, who work in the city and get back home late at night. Usually that's the case with the tram. The buses are mostly empty, since they take longer, and most people prefer the train over the swaying drive through narrow streets, with a stop coming up every few hundred meters. I prefer the bus though, since I have to walk quite a bit from the tram station back to my house, which, as a girl walking at night, isn't my preferred option whatsoever. It has happened before that I got back home from friends and was greeted by drunken men sitting on the pavement, drinking beer, and calling me over. So no thanks. The bus stops twice, at the beginning and the end of my street. With my house being right in the middle of the street, it's the better option for me. If it's late and I'm drowsy, I can even miss my stop and get out the next one, and I have to walk the same distance. It's currently the end of January, and the sun usually sets around 4 to 5 p.m. My curfew around this time of year is 10 p.m. Me and my friend group had spent the afternoon together, sitting around the table and yapping at each other, when I realized the time, around 9:20. Knowing I'd be late, I called my dad to inform him. He wasn't particularly happy and offered to come pick me up, but I declined, knowing he takes his sleep very religiously. I told him I'd be fine and reminded him of the karate classes I had when I was 11, which didn't calm him down, but the idea of having to get out of bed and drive 20 minutes to come pick up his useless teenage daughter didn't seem to amaze him either, so he reluctantly agreed to let me take public transport alone. I'm always the first one to leave meetups, so I took advantage of being late anyways and took extra long to get my stuff. I left my friend's apartment at around 9:50. After punching through the stuffed metro, it was a Friday as well, so people were using their Fiera Bend to go knock themselves out in some club with friends and coworkers, and squeezing myself in an overflowing train which basically spit me onto the train station as I got out again. The cold air of January was a welcomed gift. I was now left between taking the tram back home or the bus. The bus would have arrived 5 minutes later than the tram, but I needed to cool down anyway, and the option of walking the kilometer from the tram station to my house came with the possibility of coming across a few drunks leaving the local pub. So I sat down at the bus station and watched a tram coming from my quarter of town, driving by in the direction of the city, packed with people looking for a fun night out. When it arrived, I was one of 3 people sitting down inside the warm and stuffy bus. I haven't been inside many buses outside of Germany, so I don't know if the smell inside is universal, so I'm going to describe it. It smells a bit as if hot gasoline spilled onto plastic, and the fumes had creeped into the soft cover of the seat. It smells of sweaty armpits, even in winter, dead skin, old people, and old cars. It smells warm and suffocating, and if you get carsick easily, then the smell is guaranteed to be a catalyst. Luckily, I'm used to it by now, and after noting it shortly, I'm able to ignore the smell of generations of sweaty passengers blazing under the summer heat in the rolling tuna can, sweat dripping on the cushions, being rubbed in by the next sweaty passenger's sweaty ass. I swear to God, some people have never even entered the aisle in the store where they sell deodorants. I looked for the least disgusting seat. Sometimes you never know what those dark stains actually are, and I'm convinced the seats are only patterned as some sort of camouflage for all the dirt, and sat down at the window. With YouTube blasting through my headphones and the street lamps passing by in a blur, I did the thing where you pretend to be in a movie. After around 20 minutes of possibly the most boring film scene ever, I pressed the stop button, and a jingle calling through the bus let the driver know that the next stop was mine. By then, I was the only passenger left inside the bus. Sometimes I wonder if, at some point in the future, they will discontinue the bus line, since it seems like a waste of fuel. As I imagine what it would be like driving the bus, chauffeuring around empty seats and possibly a jacket left behind late at night, I noticed that we weren't slowing down, even though my stop was coming up at the end of the street. Wondering if I'd hallucinated pressing the button, I pressed again. This time I was left without a jingle. After aggressively pressing several times, I got up to try another button. After reaching the third button and pressing it down hard, the bus took the corner into my street at full speed, and I grabbed the edge of the seat, barely avoiding crashing into another. My arm hurt at the sudden pull of my whole body weight. Helpless, I stood in the middle of the bus, pressing the stupid buttons over and over. You're probably asking yourself why my first cause of action wasn't to go up to the front and talk to the driver, and obviously the thought had already crossed my mind. But you see, one of my biggest fears is talking to strangers. I avoid it any time I can, especially when I need to ask for help. I wasn't able to go to the store alone until I was around 14 or 15, because I was scared of talking to the cashier. I'd always take my younger sister with me, who used to get angry with me for being so socially incompetent. I can't talk to teachers properly, I've never made a friend because I went up to them, but instead I got adopted by all the friend groups I've ever been a part of. Asking the bus driver to stop would basically mean correcting him or telling him he'd done a mistake, and everything inside me turned inside out at the thought of an old grumpy man shouting at me because I told him how to do his job. I know that sounds stupid, but that's just the way my brain works, and I can't help it. But eventually, I realized that it would be my only option. Maybe the driver hadn't seen me because we were separated by his driver's cabin. Maybe he'd turned off the systems because he thought the bus might be empty. Admittedly, that just sounds stupid, but what else was supposed to have happened? While I still stood in the bus aisle, trying to gather up the courage to walk up front and talk to the driver, I felt the bus hit a familiarly shaky part of the road. I looked out of the dirty window just as we passed my house. I recognized it, although it was dark outside, and almost all the lights were turned off. My sister's window faces the street, and her pink curtains glowed in the dark. She probably still sat over one of her art projects. That short moment of seeing the peace and comfort of my home gave me enough courage to walk up front, grabbing support bars left and right as the bus rumbled over the neglected street covered in holes, where me and my sister used to put little paper boats in when it rained, and they turned into small oceans. I planned out my words. Sorry, sir. Excuse me. I need to get... I said to the empty chair. I stopped, dead in my tracks, both hands holding on to something on each side to not fall and break my neck. What the... The steering wheel was turning seemingly at random, all on its own. The bus was going straight, but the wheel had a slight drift to the left, which didn't seem to bother the rest of the vehicle. Dumbfounded, I stared at it, as it took a sharp turn to the right, but the bus went on, as always. Down the street, I could see the next stop approaching. Hello? I called out, not sure how to proceed. I don't know if I expected the driver to suddenly reappear again, or what I was trying to accomplish, but obviously, nothing happened. I stared at the dimly glowing green numbers next to the steering wheel, telling the time. 10:46 p.m. Suddenly, there was something right at my neck, hovering just over my skin. It was the primal instinct of being watched. My shoulders tensed, and even though it was fairly warm in the bus, a shiver ran over my whole body down to my feet. Too scared to move, I slightly tilted my head to look at the surveillance camera on the ceiling. I could almost feel it looking back. As the bus rushed past the next stop and its warmly lit bus shelter, I was thrown out of my stupor. Not looking behind me, I rushed to the driver's seat and grabbed the wheel. Or at least tried to. But no matter how many times I tried, my hands wouldn't reach it. It was like trying to walk up to a rainbow, where it moves away with every step. It was definitely there, but I just couldn't reach it. My mouth fell open to catch a breath. I tasted it before I smelled it. I tasted dead skin cells and gasoline and years' worth of sweat and plastic, and the air was so warm that it almost seemed as if I was breathing in an animal. I immediately closed my mouth as the smell intensified, but the taste lingered on my tongue and made it feel hairy. I tried covering my nose while still trying to reach for the steering wheel, my feet helplessly searching the brakes but only finding air. And as the bus took the next corner, I slid out of the driver's seat and crashed onto the floor, my hands meeting with the wet dirt of shoes brought in by late passengers. My only proof that there, in fact, had been people inside the bus prior. I didn't dare to turn around, still fearing something lunging at me if I did so. The adrenaline numbed my muscles, and I didn't notice the pain in my arm anymore that I had tugged moments earlier. My head spun as I got up. Nothing seemed clear anymore. The walls were caving in, but miles away. I couldn't reach for the seats, and the old streets under the wheels made standing difficult. I was thrown around, trying to keep my balance at the inside speed the bus was going now. How are we not hitting anything? How is it not hitting anything? How could I stop this nightmare? I caught a glimpse of the surveillance camera, and now I knew it was looking at me, but it was just sitting there as my vision blurred. Something started to drip. Maybe the windows. But it all just looked so wrong. Finally, I got hold of the edge of a seat. I was laying down on the floor inside the boiling dirt. The rigid smell of old gasoline entered my ears and nose and clouded my brain. I didn't move. There were sounds coming from the engine. It was screaming silently, but I didn't understand. My nails felt weird, as if there was something between them, and the bare flesh of my fingers and my bones seemed to distance themselves from me. I heaved myself up, my body at least 5 times as heavy as usual. I was driven by adrenaline, and I was at the end of the bus. No, at the front. No, underneath the seats. I was looking down at me, and I was looking out from behind my eyeballs. I fell forward and hit something. I heard a jingle, and then a door slowly opened. The icy wind hit my skin, cooling down the sweat and dirt as the bus carelessly rushed through the streets. With the inside of the bus being distorted, the outside looked as always. The dashboard bubbled up to my face, and the time display showed 10:62 p.m. Nothing that was possible. I was in a daze, almost unconscious, still trying to reach for the wheel. The bus screeched around a corner, and I hit the pavement. The adrenaline covered to the pain of the impact, and the backlights of the bus vanished in the distance. I sucked in breaths of cool air as the rancid smell of the bus seemed to drip out of my ears onto the concrete. I didn't even try to get up to the nearest bush as I rolled onto my side and let vomit spill out of my mouth. I didn't dare to move. I just lay there and waited until I regained feeling of my body. Then, after an ungodly amount of time, I dragged myself home. I still don't know how I got there, how I opened the front door and stumbled into my room. But I won't ever enter a bus again. Ever. Well, that was quite a first show. I think it went pretty well, Skeevy. How about you? Yeah. yeah, there were some bumps in the road, but all in all, I think it went pretty well. And I hope you enjoyed the stories. Let me know what you liked better. Did you like the Forgotten Tales? Did you like the modern Lost Episode Creepypasta? Or did you like the Nosleep story? Hashtag Nosleep, you know what I mean? Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, that's all that's on my notes. Well, thank you all for stopping by. We're going to be doing it again next week, so if you enjoyed listening to these stories live with me and hanging out for about an hour, come on by next week. We're going to do it again. We're going to hang out. And yeah, everyone in the chat, say thanks to Skeevy. And yeah, we will talk to you.